Perhaps the most immediately menacing and in a way the most preventable of all harmful powers are the Dre. Two types merit mention. The Sandre are re-embodied law, consciousness principles that detach from a person during sleep to wander about and that cause illness and misfortune to those that they meet. The Tibetans are very aware and wary of these beings, so much so that they are loath to walk about at night lest they encounter one. The Shindre is a destructive ghost born out of the mental state of a person at the time of death. If the death is a sudden or violent one, such as murder, accident, or suicide, or if it occurs with the thought of vengeance arising in the mind of the newly deceased person, then rebirth may be taken as a Shindre. The consciousness of the Shindre is obviously in a state of extreme disorder and must be dealt with very carefully. The Shindre bent upon vengeance is particularly dangerous since it seeks to cut off the sok, the vital force of its intended victim. Thus, in all instances, an exorcism ceremony is prescribed. While homonyms can be tantalizingly misleading, one can't help but compare the name Shindre with Chindi, the destructive ghost of a deceased Navajo. The similarities are, in fact, more than superficial. Navajo philosophers say that a Chindi arises when a person dies before his or her time, that is, before the time when old age kills. An untimely death can mean only one thing. The person who had died prematurely from sudden illness, violence, suicide, or witchcraft did not have time to become purified of faults. When a person dies with inner rancor, a residue of the wind soul remains to wreak havoc among family members and others upon whom the deceased had been fixated during life. This is the basis for the misunderstood Navajo fear of the dead, which has perplexed Anglo-American observers for generations. A fear does very much exist, but not of all dead people, only those qualifying as potential sources of Chindi. Then the deceased possessions and even the home, if the death took place within, would often be destroyed. Death by old age, on the other hand, means that the person's inner rancor must likely had been dispelled, and that the old man or woman, having lived a life of Sa'anagai Bikehozho, had died without faults. How else, reason the Navajo, could the person have attained a ripe old age? In that case, upon death, the wind soul, leaving no harmful residue, returns to the dawn woman, or however the cosmic fount is visualized, to be recycled via rebirth into another body. For Tibetans, whenever negativity manifests powerfully, certain types of ritual events must be staged. These put out mental-based energy for righting the person's relationship with the obstructing powers. This is accomplished through the 4 yogas, which include pacification, paying homage to the obstacles, enriching, offering of wealth and goodness to them, magnetizing, subduing and drawing them toward an improved state of being, and destroying, implementing destructive measures when all others have failed. Customary daily prayers and mantras invoke and pacify these entities. Likewise, when Tibetans hold daily and monthly Sangsul ceremonies in which incense, juniper, and burnt substances, grain, foods, beer, etc., are offered, they are pacifying and enriching the full range of power beings. In the course of the Sangsul, Tibetans visualize in the smoke the most enriching objects of the universe being carried to these powerful beings by beautiful offering goddesses. And again, through the power of their imaginations, they visualize the offerings being multiplied manifold along with their prayers, so that auspicious results definitely will be achieved. Magnetizing rites are centered around 2 types of objects known as do and lud. They are often found together in the form of elaborate arrays of woolen thread crosses and butter and barley sculpted figures of human and other beings set in palatial residences. The former are used to attract the consciousness of a terrestrial god or ghost, while the latter is a ransom or substitute offering to the harmful powers, so as to ward off any negativity that they might bring. These thread cross and ransom substitute arrays are sometimes quite massive and elaborate. Sometimes, however, more serious measures are required, and rites utilizing destructive energy are arrayed. A most vivid procedure involves the throwing of the torma ritual cake or spiritual bomb. This is the final public portion of an invocation rite to one or many of the protectors of the Tibetan religion. In other occasions, as in the case of attack by a dangerous shindre or other stubborn harmful powers, an exorcism rite is required. The classic Tibetan exorcism ceremony is a grand fusion of tantric Buddhist and aboriginal practices known as shedur, the severance of the agent of death. An acknowledged master of the rite is Lama Yeshe Dorje Rinpoche, tantric master to the Dalai Lama and abbot of Zolnon Kagyeling Monastery in Dharamsala, India. I witnessed an elaborate 6-day shedur under his direction in a dormitory at the Tibetan Children's Village in Dharamsala. See Appendix 5. The rite was requested after Dimmadation had determined that a recently deceased staff member's consciousness had been entrapped in the intermediate space, Bardo, during the rebirth process. Under the control of a powerful captor or power being, it had taken on a body of one of thousands of different types of ghosts. Its mind was highly unquiet, and many children and adults at the village had complained of sensing or even seeing it. This is a dangerous situation, since such outer ghosts which haunt people in places can produce seriously negative results. This dangerous condition necessitated an exorcism in which the consciousness of the person had to be separated from its ghostly form, its karmic predicament. In short, the ghost had to be ritually and compassionately dispatched. But the enemy is not simply killed, its consciousness is directed onto the path toward a higher rebirth leading to enlightenment. This tantric Buddhist refinement on the aboriginal exorcistic model comes out of the tantric lineage of Chod. In the words of Lama Yeshe Dorje, the function of the shedur rite is the practice of completely cutting through the root of ego clinging. It deals with all the negative influences on living people by removing the negative energy affecting them. It also deals with all who have died and are stuck in the bardo. Through the rite, these obstacles are eliminated and led on to the path toward liberation. In order to fully understand rites such as shedur, we need to consider some deeper Tibetan ideas concerning obstacle energies. Each of the 5 constituents making up the body-mind, form, emotions, thoughts, volitions, and coordinating consciousness, can fall so out of balance and out of control, i.e. become psychotic, that one may be attacked by various obstacle entities called dawn, demonic states. According to the basic tantra of Tibetan healing, the gyuji, they include elemental demons manifesting as sudden schizophrenic states, madness demons, chronic manic depressive and emotionally distorted states, oblivion demons affecting concentration, memory, and leading to catatonia, sky planetary demons causing unstable mental energies culminating in epileptic seizures, and earth and water demons, rotting murky energies leading to such degenerative afflictions as leprosy. Dawn is a kind of influence that brings with it negative energy and subsequent ill effects. It is generated from vibrations projected by our body-mind's 5 components. In this way, when the unenlightened body-mind thinks, speaks, or acts according to the dictates of an uncontrolled ego, negative effects will arise. When the impulse behind these effects is sufficiently strong or deliberate, these negative effects, or dawn, can, it is said, actually take semi-physical form as a ghost or demon. This view is understandable considering the Tibetan and likewise the Navajo conviction that if you can visualize something, then you can also cause it to come into existence. Worldwide human beings testify to ghosts haunting people and places to which they are attached, and episodes of witchcraft or black magic's deliberate negative influence on others is so widespread as to be functionally quite real. One thing is certain, people can be hurt as effectively by other people's thoughts as by their actions, but the main victim is the person whose mind generates the dawn. Trungpa Rinpoche described elemental dawn this way. Dawn means some sense of experience of something that exists around us which suddenly makes us unreasonably fearful, or suddenly makes us unreasonably angry and aggressive, or horny and passionate. It is a neurotic attack of some kind which is called dawn. If we approach it from an external point of view, we could say that such spirits exist outside us. The ghost of George Washington hit us, so we are inspired to run for the presidency or whatever. The visualized demons and monsters, the enemy obstacles of dawn, are, on an internal level, none other than those misused energies festering within each of our body minds. Tibetans have created a systematic inventory of these demons of the body, speech, and mind. Similarly, the Navajo recognize the dangerous nature of a reality of self and cosmos imbued with obstacle energies created by Na'ayee. These enemies are vividly described in their Chantway spiritual histories, and both cultures' spiritual systems provide procedures for reconciling one's relationship with these dangerous powers by harnessing similar energies to act as their antidote. Appendix 5. 2 Rites of Exorcism. Anaji, the Enemy Way Rite. Enemy Way is the Navajo grand reenactment of an archetypal battle, complete with mounted warriors shooting off guns, formerly arrows, in a ritualized attack upon a ghost in the camp of the one sung over. During the days prior to the rite, the patient is suitably prepared for warding off the enemy's ghost through sweat baths, protective prayers, and songs. He or she is to also made invisible to the perception of the ghost by having the entire body blackened with herbal ash. The warriors arrive at the one sung over as Hogan after setting up camps at successively closer sites on 2 previous days. They have prepared a special ceramic water drum to beat the ghosts of the enemy into the ground, and they carry a sacred wand known as the rattlestick. It is the symbol of various power and conquers this ghostly obstacle. Made from a cedar branch, symbols of the warrior twins, monster slayer and child born for water, are carved into it. They signify the power over enemies and the power of life, respectively. The rattlestick is covered with various natural materials, including charred herbs and red ochre in tallow. Together they signify the fierce power of the water balanced by the life-bearing menstrual blood of the earth. Fresh herbs are affixed to signify the vegetative life force, and turkey and eagle feathers are attached last as signs of the goodness of domesticated animals and the all-pervasive power of the eagle. The rattlestick in this way embodies the full range of qualities of a warrior. Once the one sung over has been blackened, dressed in the war paint of Monster Slayer, the ethereal body of the ghost is attacked by a senior warrior. The ghost is visualized as existing in the object of his attack. In the old days, the object might actually have been the scalp of a deceased enemy. Nowadays, a piece of bone from a prehistoric Anasazi burial site will do, or even a surreptitiously snipped buckskin fringe from an Indian warrior's shirt on display in a local museum. Also usable is a personal possession of a known enemy or non-Navajo. The warrior ritually attacks the scalp with a raven's bill. The local ravens are scavengers of refuse and dead animals, thus the symbolic value of using their pointed bill in this first stabbing of the scalp. Soon thereafter, the blackened one sung over exits the hogan, surrounded by kinfolk and friends, to himself attack the scalp with the raven's bill. The others then take over, actually shooting the scalp with bows and arrows or guns, often finally burning it to ash. The act of purification now complete, all the participants inhale the sun's rays 4 times. In this way they acquire the same energy with which Sunbearer empowered the warrior twins on their visit to him during ancient times. Through the partnership of actions, vocalizations in prayer and song, and the powers of the imagination, the ghost is banished from the one sung over, who should now feel a strong sense of release. If the diagnosis has been correct, the ghost psychic and physical disruption of Hozho, the beautiful pattern of the one sung over, will be neutralized and the cure will surely follow. Shadur, the severance of the agent of death. This form of Chod ritual is held under the guidance of Nakpas, spellmasters, the spiritual technicians of Tibetan daily life. Much of the first day in this exorcism rite is taken up in preparation of ritual objects and altar offerings. On the altar sits a vase containing sanctified water with an attached mirror. It signifies the essence of the pure, unstained, clear light mind residing in the emptiness of the void, the state that the Lama, the rite's recipients, and the ghost's own consciousness all seek to attain. Above the vase is suspended a small painting. It shows a group of 5 outer dakinis. At its center is their main form, Trungma, the fierce black ether-goer, who is the most wrathful emanation of Machig Labdron, originator of this Chod-type rite. Emanating from her are 4 dakinis of the 4 directions and 4 elements. The white dakini of the east and water, the yellow lady of the south and earth, the red lady of the west and fire, and the dark green dakini of the north and air. They all dance on one leg, have fierce fanged grimaces, skull headdresses, and bone aprons, and hold a skull cup, a staff, and a hooked knife. To effect the capture and transformation of the ghost's consciousness, the Lama himself, along with the patients or beneficiaries of the rite, must be transformed into the black dakini in her emanations. This is known as Wangdu, the self-generation of the tutelary deity. The Lama takes on the inner qualities of the 5 dakinis. The black ones enlighten wisdom for attaching them, dispelling self-bewildering ignorance. The white ones mirror-like wisdom for controlling anger. The yellow ones equalizing enriching energy, controlling pride. The red ones discriminating wisdom, controlling lust. And the green ones all-encompassing wisdom, dispelling jealousy. All these afflictive attachments dealt with by each dakini's wisdom are considered to be the inner ghosts that we habitually generate within ourselves. In this instance, they are the inner ghosts of the living who are being afflicted by the outer ghost of the deceased person, whose own consciousness in turn is severely afflicted by these same types of ego-generated negative qualities. The great black dakini's consciousness, on the other hand, forms out of the emptiness of the void. The mind stream of the dakini is envisioned to travel along a twisted thread of rainbow colors from the vase of consecrated water over the painting of the dakinis and into the shirt of the Lama, where its end, tied around a tiny dorje, touches his heart center. In this way, he takes on the inner characteristics of the dakinis and is transformed. During one of these rites held at the Tibetan children's village in Dharamsala, India, I remember seeing Lama Yeshe Dorje's demeanor transform from that of a genial old uncle figure into a man easily 15 years his junior. He became a powerful but gentle persona whose face and posture favorably resembled that of the founder of his root lineage, Padmasambhava, who dispelled similar obstacles to the advent of Buddhism in Tibet. The 5 inner dakinis embody purified versions of the 5 characteristics of one's total being, its form, feelings, perceptions, volitions, and coordinating awareness. They are also the elemental energies at play in the psychic nervous system, those which deeply affect one's state of mind. So the Lama, as must all in attendance, transforms his 5 psychophysical qualities into those of the inner dakinis in order to gain the aid of the dakini's outer forms. Their powers are wielded by the Lama and thus are allowed to operate on the physical plane, which is our ordinary reality. In this way, the dakini, ether-goers' qualities permeate the Lama and patient participants who are or could be affected by the ghost's negativity. Since they purify the individual's 5 psychophysical aspects and inner winds, the arena in which the ghost can affect someone, the ghost's hold is weakened and can then be subdued by the actions of the Lama deity with the aid of the outer dakinis and the protector deities of the cosmos. Consequently, tormas are thrown at the 4 directions on behalf of the protectors. After holding a Chod-style feast for these powers, as well as for the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and local earth divinities, the Shedur rite proper is ready to begin. The exorcism itself has 2 main sections. The first, or violent phase, is the capture and severance of the ghost of the deceased from its physical form. The second is the peaceful phase, in which the consciousness of the deceased is led to liberation by careful instructions and procedures. The violent phase begins with the divination and capture of the offending ghosts. 9 wooden plaques wrapped with strands of the patient's hair are painted with the names of each of the 9 classes of ghosts, a system inherited from pre-Buddhist times. They are placed in a rawhide or leather bag, such as that carried by the fierce goddess Palden Lamo. The bag is shaken and beaten on the backs of each person in attendance at the ceremony so as to capture any evils hovering in their personal space. Various symbolic weapons are brandished by the Lama's assistants, and horns and noisemakers are blown so as to enhance the attack and capture of the ghost. As this is done, the dakinis of the 4 directions are called upon to herd in the ghosts from their spheres of the cosmos. The plaques are dropped numerous times over a knife's edge into an iron cauldron, then read by the ritual master. Once a plaque has fallen 3 times with its writing facing upward, the members of that class of enemy beings are said to have been captured. The process is repeated until the Lama and the dakinis have captured the appropriate ghost. Once captured, the ghost must be ritually imprisoned, then severed from the realm of the living, particularly the person and psychic space of the afflicted persons. This is accomplished by coaxing it into a sculpted flour and butter human-shaped effigy, linga, with chants and visualizations. The Lama then stabs the effigy with his purba and cuts it up with his hooked knife. In this way he severs the ghost's 5 afflictive emotions: self-bewildering, ignorance, anger, prideful, arrogance, lust, and jealousy, from its basic pure awareness, and frees it from its miserable ghostly body. This act likewise severs its hold upon the body-mind of the ceremony's beneficiaries. And since all beings are connected on a subtle psychophysical level, the participants hopefully visualize that the severed energies are also their own afflictive qualities of body-mind. The pieces of the linga are then offered as nectar to the dakini emanations of Trungma Nakmo Machig Labdron, with the request that they bestow their 5 wisdoms upon both the ghostly and the human participants of the rite. The effigies, pieces, and the plaques are eventually placed before a Chorten construction representing the enlightened mind, and here begins the peaceful phase of the rite. The Chorten symbolizes the 6 levels or realms of rebirth that every consciousness will have experienced on the path to enlightenment or liberation. The Lama leads the ghost's awareness through each higher level, increasingly purifying it of its mental afflictions, until it shoots up through the top of the structure and into an enlightened rebirth in the Pure Land of the Buddha of boundless light, Opame Abhidhamma. Once this is accomplished, the pieces of effigy, plaques, and other phenomena are burned in the cauldron in a dramatic fire of gnosis, and with it ends the actual shid or exorcism. But all is not yet finished. Tidying up, rituals are now in order. The ashes and expendable ritual paraphernalia are taken to a nearby cremation ground. There, while the monks chant the liturgy and blow their human thigh-bone horns and play their chode drums, the ritual refuse is buried under a chorten composed of 9 stones. Interestingly, buried along with the exorcism's paraphernalia is a dog's skull wrapped in geometric bands of colored thread, possibly signifying a connection between the class of the ghost and the sky realm overseen by Old Father Kenpo and his sky dog. The next 2 days of tidying up rituals are devoted to re-establishing balance with the various Earth and Bardo, intermediate rebirth state, power beings who might have been offended by the Shedder's proceedings. Accordingly, the next day sees the construction, empowering, and offering of a 6-foot-tall thread cross array to the power of the Earth on whose spot the rite took place. The thread cross array is seen by the potentially dangerous power being as a rainbow-lit beacon. It entices the being through the encoded pattern of its colored threads. Here they beckon to the Sadag, the masters of the earth, and the serpentine water beings, Lu. They arrive at what to them is a wonderful palace amid rainbows, and partake of the offerings set below the thread crosses. Amid the butter lamps and bowls of colored liquids are woodblock printed plaques of a male and a female human. These are substitutes, ransom offerings, in place of the actual participants. Once the paradise is visualized as having been given to these power beings, the entire array is carried to a nearby lake and submerged. The lake is, of course, a preferred environment for the Lu. The last day sees the construction of an even more elaborate thread cross array. This palace of rainbows with its varied riches is to be offered to the death demon from the bardo who had enslaved the ghost. At the Tibetan children's village, Shadur, the offering was made to a very dangerous power being by the name of Tornak Gosum, the three-headed black one. His sculpted Torma figure sat in the center of this palace and showed him to have a black body with long scorpion-like pincer-shaped arms and the heads of an ox, a tiger, and either a scorpion or a snake. The death demon is undoubtedly very angry over the loss of his ghostly slave, and it is crucial that he be placated if he is to return to the bardo without wreaking more havoc. The final offering array, now ritually consecrated, is discarded later in the day at a nearby crossroads. At the Tibetan children's village, the neutralized offering was immediately set upon by some of the fiercest forces residing in the area, the children themselves. In no time, the harmless remnants of the offering rite were dismembered by the playing children in a frenzy of activity. As a whole, this rite illustrates the totality of Tibetan exorcistic work, ranging from major pre-Buddhist Bon practices to ideas and procedures that are typically Tantric Buddhist. Needless to say, these potent procedures should be attempted only by qualified, fully initiated spiritual practitioners whose motives are impeccably altruistic. Appendix 6. Diviners and Divination. Navajos and Tibetans know that they are extensions of a greater universal system. When they fall out of balance with it, they often seek causes and solutions through agents who are more effectively connected to the macrocosm than the ordinary person. People with a special receptivity to the divine powers of the cosmos. Human beings worldwide have such diviners, spiritual diagnosticians such as oracles, mediums, channelers. The names vary, but the purposes, and in many cases the techniques, are identical. The Navajo use a variety of techniques to divine the cause of illness, misfortune, or negativity. For example, when a child, animal, or valuable object is lost, or a spell is believed to have been maliciously cast, a listening rite is held. The listener, through ritual procedures, deep concentration, and use of special ear medicine, is enabled to hear sounds that lead to the lost entity or cause of black magic. Similarly, in the crystal gazing rite, the cause of difficulties is seen in a quartz crystal that is illuminated by candles. If an important decision must be made, especially one that affects an entire family, or if a long journey is contemplated, then a stargazing or alternately a sun-gazing rite will be held. The stargazer may visualize beams of light emanating from the sky and enveloping various individuals. Through this kind of vision, the auspiciousness of personal undertakings is determined. When a Navajo's fall out of balance with the elemental powers manifests as an illness, a chantway rite is generally prescribed. In order to determine which rite is most proper to treat the psychophysical imbalance, a diagnostician must be consulted. The usual medium for this purpose is the hand trembler. The hand trembler generally does his or her divination over the bodily part of the person being affected. The hand trembler first washes his or her hands and sprinkles them with corn pollen. Then, after quietly centering the mind, the hands and forearms begin to spasm. Eventually, this causes a thought to enter the medium's mind, which leads to a diagnosis of the cause of illness and the proper rite for curing it. Similarly, divination practices are extremely widespread among Tibetans. When, for example, one desires to engage in a major business transaction or is about to begin a long journey, various diviners may be consulted. The most common medium is a lama or a specially gifted layperson known as a moba. Both are skilled in casting dice or similar indicators. They read the dice and, based upon their mentations, recommend the proper course of action. often with very specific details. Likewise, should some relative valuable object or animal become lost, a melongba or mirror gazer may be consulted. This man or woman uses the melong mirror, signifying the clear light mind's insight in a practical, physical manner. It is set up vertically in a bowl of rice, and a burning butter lamp is placed before it. In the flickering light reflected off the curved surface of the polished metal mirror, the diviner sees the source of the problem and indications by which it may be solved. But the most expressive and vital sources of divination in Tibetan culture are the oracles. These individuals go into an ecstatic, epileptic-like trance as their bodies become temporarily inhabited by a power being, usually a pre-Buddhist divinity. When one has a serious problem relating to health, finances, family, and so on, such an oracle may be consulted. A popular medium residing in the Tibetan community of Dharamsala, India, is the turquoise lamp lady Udromna. The turquoise lamp lady is the leader of a pantheon of 12 aboriginal mountain goddesses. Her body basis at the present time is a middle-aged Tibetan woman. Her body-mind becomes activated when the consciousness of the goddess enters it. She spasms violently as she spews out the answers to a string of questions posed to her by her assistant. Sometimes simple and general answers come to the questions. At other times specific ceremonies and personal acts are prescribed. The most illustrious of Tibetan oracles is the official state oracle who resides at Nichung Monastery. This young monk, the 14th in a line of such Nichung oracles, was chosen by an emanation of a group of 5 fiercely protective aboriginal warrior divinities, the Kunga Gyalmo. He enters into trance amid a montage of chants and instrumental sounds. The divinity emanation Dorje Drakten slowly enters his body and transforms the polite young man into a fierce, sword-wielding, spasmodic, otherworldly being. In this state, he gives prognostications concerning the fate of the Tibetans, the health and work of the Dalai Lama, and other indications, such as the validity of a choice of a young child as the reincarnation of a deceased Lama. What is significant in all this is the universal importance of such mediumship, especially in cultures such as the Tibetan and Navajo, where the individual is known to be an inextricable aspect of the process of the greater cosmos. Universal, too, is the psychophysical process underlying the act of divination by the Navajo hand trembler and the Tibetan oracle, one that we disconnected Westerners are only beginning to re-understand. Let us consider 2 important cases. The hand trembler Gregorio was probably the most well-known of Navajo diagnosticians, as the result of studies by the anthropologists Alexander and Dorothea Layton during the 1940s. He explained to them how he had become a hand trembler. Once life in his hogan, he had slept for a short while and awakened to find that my legs and feet and whole body felt all large, and I could feel something through my arms there, as if it was running through my hands and out of the end of my fingers. After that, my hands started shaking. Then, that feeling I had in my body, I could feel it very well. It all started from the end of the toes and came up through the knees and up to the top of my head. What Gregorio was describing could be construed by Western psychologists as a mild form of epileptic seizure. Tibetan tantric practitioners would say that the wind energy was coursing powerfully through the psychic channels. Navajo philosophers say that the body's winds exit from the fingertips, toe tips, and head, leaving whirlwind-like whirl patterns in one's finger and toe prints, and in the growth pattern of one's hair. Tibetan oracles would identify well with Gregorio's experience. Consider, for example, the following account of the current Nechung oracle's first trance as told to the author in 1990. On March 31, 1987, while serving as ritual master at Nikchung Monastery, Khalsang, now named Thubten Gudrup, was carrying incense into the temple for a special ceremony in front of the sacred statues of an earlier state oracle and the deity Dorje Drakten. It had been 3 years since the passing of the previous oracle's body basis, and this ceremony was one of the many dedicated to finding his successor. Suddenly, the young man was hit by a wave of energy that began by radiating up his arms before he spontaneously went into trance. Subsequently, after being recognized as the body basis of Dorje Drakten, the young monk always undergoes a particular sequence of events as he enters a trance. My entire body slowly gets sensations like electric shocks through the tsa psychic channels, and my body seems to get larger all over. When the god arrives, my normal consciousness gets locked up somewhere until the god leaves, and after the trance ends, for 15 or 20 minutes, my body feels numb. In such an energized state, transcending normal reality, is it not possible for the individual mind to merge with the collective mind of the cosmos, which in any event is composed of the same stuff as one's body mind? Could this be the basis of the oracle's ultrasensitivity to the individual or situation at hand? Certainly, my own seance with the goddess Eudromna provided uncanny accurate responses to my questions.